Welcome back to Backyard Builds. I've got a fresh project in the shed, so let's get stuck into it. So the new project in the shed that I'm standing in front of is actually a customer car of mine. This is one of my traditional fabrication engineering jobs, which is on the shirt there. You might recognize this car. It's actually from the owner of SS Custom Engineering. They do the tacking bands, pipe clamps, cutting fixtures. They also do some really amazing pipe work. Stacey down there is an absolute legend. So the go with this car is, I think the goal actually is drag and drive car, but it's also a promotional vehicle for his business. And what I've got the lovely task of doing is all the floors and all the metal fab, firewall, engine bay. The ute tub was in another stage of works. So what this video is going to cover is my thought process and my manufacturing from the nothing that is there to the parts that are there. I'm hoping this video comes out probably a week or two before MotorX, so you can actually come down and check this out at MotorX 2025 in Melbourne. So let's stop talking about it. Let's have a quick look over the ute and what he has planned and then what I have planned. So yeah, this is a big job, and let's get stuck into it. So what we're going to cover in this first episode is all this floor and tunnel that doesn't exist. So I'm standing on the passenger side of the car. Obviously you can see that there is an aluminium race seat here for it. There's obviously going to be a matching one for this side later on. So what we've got to do is there's no structure here. Everything's been cut out. Stacey has made his own chassis, which is absolutely awesome. It should be rock solid. We've got to connect the dots. So to start this process, I had to get a rough idea of what the factory floor profile was, which is lucky that Stacey actually left that there, which is really good. Stacey made up a quick timber frame just to roughly mock up where he needed the seat, knowing that we still need to put a harness bar behind it, as well as potentially space for a cage at a later date. But this car also has been equipped with a 6-bead sequential box. That's a hell of a unit. It's also got a 20B, this is a mock-up motor as well, guys. It's got a 20B triple rotor being built for it with what I can only assume is one hell of a hairdryer for it. But the motor is not quite what we're worrying about at the moment. So we've got our original floor profile roughly. We know roughly where the seat is. Stacey has mocked everything up and got everything in position for the driveline. The only thing we don't have is a steering column, but we're not going to worry about that in this episode. He's still going to mount the rack and a few other bits and pieces before we get to doing that. So my brain thought initially I need to create structures and profiles that are rigid and strong, knowing that I need to mount a seat to it. I need, it to be self-supporting because I don't want to have it sag and sit on the rails. So what I actually did was, the other day, it's been bucketing rain here in Canberra. It's the first time it's not rained in a few days. It's actually made up a profile of roughly what this main seat area is going to be. It's very, very basic. It's just a 50mm strip, a couple of folds in it. It gives me the rough layout of where I want everything to be in terms of the main, just the flat sheet profile. What we're going to do now, that I know that this size is right, is I know roughly how big I need the landing for the seat. Is we're going to make in ram board. We're going to make a cardboard floor first. So we're going to fold it up, cut it to size. We're going to draw out all our patterns on it, which should mean we can mirror image our floor. Everything seems to measure off pretty centered, which is really good. And what we're going to do from that is create our pattern which our seat will mount to, as well as the beads and the structure I'm going to stamp into the floor essentially. So there's not much else I can tell you about it. I've just got to get stuck into it. So let's get the ram board unrolled and cut a couple of pieces up. What I want to show you before we really kick off, this seat needs to be in this position. It needs to be as close to the pillar as possible, and it needs to have that space behind it for a tube to run through. What I have actually done the other night in the rain was make up this sample profile of how I want the floor to look. Knowing that I want the bucket seat to be right there. So I know it needs to be 45mm from the sill over and about 50mm behind just in case. So I'm going to pull this out. And the timber, which comes out just like that. And remember how I was talking about that original floor profile here? Knowing that there's a body mount there and a body mount here, this piece is actually directional. So this is the back, this is the front. So when it sits in on this floor, it lands where the original body mount floor is, and it lands where this rear top hat originally was. That rear top hat's going to get remade except for where the mounts are, so there'll be a new piece left to right. It'll change across the back of the cab as well. But this sets the height I need for the floor. It also sets the height for the seat, because the seat actually had to come up just a hair, but that's all good. So with that profile known, I know my cut sizes. I actually wrote it all down on a piece of paper somewhere. I'm hoping I didn't just throw it away when I tied it up a little, but I know what all this needs to be. These are all 45, so it's fairly simple. What I'm going to show you now is I'm going to cut the blank in the ram board. I'm going to fold it up so I know roughly the shapes. I then know what this area is, and I can sketch out my design. I can mark out all my patterns on it, and then I can take that pattern and transfer it to my plywood for my hammer form for this area. So let's actually get the ram board out now, and I'll show you exactly my math behind this. So this is what I've got so far. Normally you'd have footage of me measuring this out and writing all my notes down as well, but because I've already sort of technically done this for the sample, you don't need to see that bit. So what I did was roughly put the seat in position. I knew how far away it was from the door pinch. I knew how far away it had to be from the back of the cab, which is good. It then gave me these sizes, so 160. I know the foot on it is 400 by 50, so I know if I make that landing 450, I should be laughing. Everything should fit. These seats don't have runners, so they don't slide. They're just bolted and fixed in position. So knowing that, I knew where I needed to set those out. I knew the overall spacing of the mounts, which then gave me roughly a position along the sill where I needed to be. I knew roughly how far I wanted that to be. And then obviously there's the footwell, the floor panel section there. Knowing all these dimensions, I then created my fold pattern, which is what's drawn up here, which is where I've got that 160 from and the 225. That 160 is that first fold, 225 is the second fold. I then mark on 450, gives me a point for that one, and then I add 110, not 112, gives me a point for that one, and that's just the overhang of the sheet from there. So knowing all those, I was able to create my template, which you saw. What I do after that is I do a more legitimate plan. So I know exactly what I want, where my seat mounts are going to be, what shape I'm going to do on the floor. I will do a bead in here later, but that's right on the edge of the sheet, so I'm not too concerned about it. And then I know where this flat is actually going to be a join to the floor footwell piece about there, add it later on. Also know that I need to make a 2mm top hat or a 3mm top hat, which will roughly sit about there, and underneath there'll be an actual like a triangulated gusset sort of there. So those will just land and pick up my seat mounts, and then the top hat will sort of run through here in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write out my fold program, and then we're going to cut this out in round board and get it folded up so we can actually see what we're playing with. Alright, so I've got my cardboard cut to size, marked out. That's a fold, not a fold, mismarked, that's a fold. And on the other side, fold, fold. Round board is pretty good, so you can actually just fold it kind of like you would sheet metal. So that's what I'm going to do. So down here at the sill, there's actually like a 75-degree fold or thereabouts. Comes off this edge, folds down, meets up where the original floor was. Later on I'm actually going to sand all this flat so this inner sill is flat and it just looks decorative. What I want my pan to do is sit on this edge and then follow down into these areas. I will put a flange, it'll be like plug welded through there and through here roughly, so it's stiff. So what I need to do is I actually need to lose my pencil, but I need to measure this offset of that fold, because this cardboard floor pan we've got, we need to know where it needs to be cut so it can fit in better. So I'm going to grab a couple of rulers right now. Just so I can measure this offset. So I know I want it to finish up hard on that edge later on. And I know I need to cut it back to there. So to there I've got 32 mil. And let's double check down the back here as well, just to be sure. Get my fat hands out of the way. 32 as well. Alright, cool. So once that sits in here, that 32 needs to come off this point out to this point. So it's 32 mil in from here. It's going to be a bit of a funny cut. But it's actually got to be slightly less. Only got to be that amount because it's going to land on here. So it's actually going to be flat down first. So I need to measure that and then take that off. So that small amount there is only 15 and 17, which gives us our 32, which is what we need. So put a note here, 15 on that edge, and then it's from there 32 back, 32 back, and again it's going to be like a funny sort of diagonal notch down here. This one is only going to go, so that comes down. We also need to know how far down it's going to go, which is getting tricky. We're talking in compound miters here. So we know that sits up there. These are obviously not quite 45, they're floppy, that's fine. We know what they've got to be later on. So I've got to cut back off that. So I need to measure what the height of this area is, which is easier said than done, but I might use a small ruler this time. Hold that small ruler against that edge to the corner of that 30 mil down. So I need to come from this edge 30 30 down. All right, I hope you followed all those notes. I'm now going to trim up. I'm going to mark that out, trim it out, bring it back here, and it should just go plonk, fall in place, roughly. Probably not. All right, so you saw me make a few little adjustments just in the trim, just because there's an extra layer of sheet metal on this pillar. Now remember, it doesn't sit fully flat down because of that body mount and stuff. But it's about there is where it's got to sit. Now before I commit to this profile in that metal, I will double check everything, make sure it is sweet before I go and notch out the floor, because I only really want to notch it once. The other thing I still need to do is the mark out for where that is. In a perfect world, what I would like to do, what I will probably work out in a minute, so I'll throw that on the floor. It might be a bit hard to see. I know you can see it on the camera. This bottom edge goes around that body mount. I'm actually going to cut the old floor off, the structured piece, and I'm going to butt weld it right into that corner so you'll never see it. It'll look like it was always there. So yes, I'm going to work out that notch next. I know that that bottom corner sat hard in there. We can get the sample back. Actually, it sat back a little bit. Now I'm thinking about it. Once that sits in there, no, it sits back a little bit. It sits back 20 mil or so. But that's fine, because I can just make a quick template of that. I know I've got to be 20 back from that edge, square, and I'm laughing. I've actually made a few more cardboard templates of the floor, a few more samples. Finally got it right. There was a couple of little adjustments I needed to make because of where the seat position was. So I finally got my cardboard template where I want it, which looks like this. I actually had to put 25 mil in this back area to bring this whole platform forward, change this front fold so it was quite steeper. Obviously notches around where that body mount is. So now I know where this sits. I have mocked the seat up just sitting in there because obviously this is cardboard and don't need it to fall through. So I know where I need it to land, which is 25 mil from each edge. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to start the layout for all the design on this section. Looking at this being longer now, I'm going to do something different in here. I want to put some shapes in here. Probably going to leave that for the meantime, but so let's get it out and start sketching out. All right, so what I've got is these areas are for the seat mounts to land on, and this is all just strength in here. Just going to be all raised, just to, well, I might actually sink that, raise those, so that area is nice and strong. They're not going to be dimple dies, they're just going to be pressed circles, again, just for strength. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do back here. This is where it like butts into the firewall. I do want to put some sort of ribbon there, just not sure what I want to do yet, but that area being quite large and flat, I can do that later on. I need to put a hole saw here just to clear the body mount. Obviously all my notches are there. And the seat mounts are actually splayed a little bit, so I'll have to mark a center line and then mark them out evenly when I do my timber form. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cut this one out first, and then I'll cut the blank floor pan. I won't do any of the notches in it or anything. I'll just put a center line up it and I'll do everything off that. Obviously mark out my folds so I know everything lays out. I do have a bit of a process I need to follow. I need to do these holes first while it's still flat. Then I can fold the pan up. Again, leaving all these notches later just so there's a bit of extra meat on there. I can sit my timber hammer forms inside the folded section because all this is upside down, so all this area is up out of the way, and then I can do all this stuff afterwards. Oh, but if I want to sink that, actually I need to do that before it gets folded, because this will all get in the way of doing that. So
I'll have to think of it. I'll have to keep that in mind. I might have to do those and those first, then fold it, and then do my raised seat mounts, I think. Yeah. Or do I just do those raised? No, that'd look cool if those were sunk. I'm going to sink those ones, sink those, raise the seat mounts. All right, let's cut some timber.
You did just see me start with the jigsaw. The problem I found I was having was the blade was actually flexing, cutting through two pieces, and it was already starting to run off. And it would have cut really badly, or it would have cut really skewed. So I've just gone and grabbed my father's circular saw. I really need to buy one of those myself. All I'm doing with this is just, I've got it set up as a guide, and it's actually got the same offset. No freaking way. Is that for real? Is that for real? I don't believe it. It does. That's considerably lucky. So I'll just cut this off here then. Sound like a plan? All right, so what I've just done with my board is I've hole sawed all my holes for my corners. That's where we're going to turn around. The tight corners as well. I've now set this angle up. I measured from the cutting edge. The router has a square edge on this side. Special thanks out to our fabulous hand model, Billy, for letting me borrow his router and trimmer today. It's going to make this job a lot easier, hopefully. I've just gone and got a 1/2 inch bit. There's a flat edge on this side. I've set up an angle. It's 64 mil. So to the line that I want to cut on, I've just 64 from that inside edge. And then basically what I'll do is I'll sit the router in the hole, and then I'll just butt up to it, and then just off I go. So there's not much else to talk about apart from that, because it's just how it's going to be. So I'm going to quickly chop all this out. It's not going to be quickly, it's probably going to take an hour or so, because I want to do it really neat. Cut to time lapse again. So I had to stop because made the bit 2-piece. Oops. So I've just had to run out to the tool shop. Where is it? Put it on the camera. We haven't got one with a 1/2 inch shank. So let's put that back in and keep going. All right, so I have made up both our hammer forms. I've just given everything a quick tidy up because that was really messy. I've also gone and cut the blank. Now, I have marked out my folds on it already, and I've marked out my center line for where we're going to do these holes first. The reason we're going to do the holes first is because once they're in, they're too close to the edge, and when I go to fold it, I'll actually crush them, and I don't want to do that. So we'll do these holes first, fold it up, and then we'll do all our beads. Actually, we're going to do holes first. These ones, the inner ones, these inner ones, because I think they clear. And then we're going to fold it up, and then we're going to do the outer ones. Fold up these ones while it's all flat. Flip it over because they're too close. Yeah, that's the process I'm going to do. So I've marked out a center line for where I want our circles, and all I've got to do is put that center line in. I've actually just got to mark the center of that first one because it's slightly offset to one side to the tunnel side, so it's center when it's in the car. But you guys knew that already because you've been watching and paying attention. So the center of that one is 245. 245 is there. Now, if I remember correctly, I cut that blank at 100. I did. So I should be able to mark out
50 mil away. And up here. Square that off. And these will be clamping lines just so we get this in the right spot. And that sits right about there. Pretty lined up. I'd be pretty happy with that. So I'm going to take those apart, mark and drill the holes. See you back here in a minute. Time lapse. Now, like we've done with previous hammer forms, lower plates in. I'm just going to tighten it all up in a minute, work out my heights and stuff. I was thinking about the tool I was going to use to do these first lot of holes. And originally I was going to use my little thumb dick one, but I thought I kind of want them nice and flat. They're kind of like a dimple, but without the hole in them. So I'm actually thinking about using my 6-inch die because it's got a 1/4 inch radius on it. My other thought was I could use my 36-inch or my flat upper because that has quite a radius on it too. I might use the flat upper because it's flat and I want these holes flat. I might use that because I can sit it into the hole and it can just travel around on the inside edge. So it should work. In theory, it should work. So I'm just going to give it a go either way. Find out in a minute. All right, I'm all set up. I had no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it anyway. I mean, it's starting to do what I would want it to do. Raise that all the way to the top of the stroke, which is there. Bring my bed up a bit more. Let's see what happens next, I suppose. Ooh, too tight. Okay. Might also be too much surface area, which I was kind of thinking might happen. Because it is, you know, I'm trying to push a 40mm tool into a 50mm, 54mm hole. Back it off with a bit. It's definitely making a dimple. It's definitely looking nice. So we'll, now the problem I'm having now is the collet's getting caught up on the hammer form. That's why I was thinking I might use my 36 lower because I've got a bit more space on the tool holder. So this is definitely working. I just need to change my tooling again. Alright, so I've swapped the tooling, got the 36 in the lower. I went up 1 full turn, which works out to whatever it was. If I measure the depth in one of the holes we haven't done, it measures at 17 and a little bit, which is about the thickness of the timber. If I measure the one we have done, we've got 23, so we're at 5mm deep right now. I would like to get those a little deeper. I don't know how much I'm going to get. I'm going to try for another 3mm, try and get them to 8mm deep so they're really there. So yeah, I'm just going to set this up. I know I need to go up 5 turns to get to this depth. So I'm going to put another turner, go up 6.5 turns maybe, and see where that lands me in depth. So yeah, it is working. Pull this out, I can actually show you. You can see there is definitely a raised section there, which is good. So yes, tooling up. Let's go again. That is our circles pressed. I'm just going to undo these and we'll take our screws at them. They're all roughly around the same depth, so that 5 to 6 mil. They look cool. That's the backside. That's all they need to be. Nice soft radius on them. Or on the ground there, that'll do. Ooh, they look cool. That's cool. Alright, next up, the bigger part.